This is a really crazy time. Congress is considering abruptly ending clean energy tax credits, and there's all kinds of misinformation being pushed out there. Some politicians are taking their ideas from a guy who recently likened the men and women of the renewable energy industry to drug pushers. This is one of the same people that is saying that renewables weaken the grid and raise costs, which is demonstrably false. And we're going to run through why that's true. I'm Doug Lewin. I'm the host of the Energy Capital podcast, author of the Texas Energy and Power newsletter. And we're going to dive a little deeper into what some of these folks that want to abruptly cut off all clean energy tax credits are saying and why it's dead wrong. First, I just want to sort of set the context here with something from the ERCOT board meeting, which happened just a few days ago.
This shows some of the changes in the resource mix that we've experienced over the last year. A little over 9,000 megawatts of new energy coming online, new supply. The bulk of that is in the solar and energy storage categories, over 9,000 megawatts between the two. Those are extremely helpful during the summer seasons. The peak in the summer, of course, is in the afternoon at the peak heat when air conditioning load is at its highest. Solar energy is very well suited to help support that. Energy storage resources very well positioned to help during the evening ramps. And we see more of that coming online in that capacity, also very helpful in that regard. We are seeing as a result of this that the peak risk hour, which is generally around 9 p.m. in the summer evenings, that the risk of emergency events during those periods of time is shrinking, dropping from over 10% a year ago to under 1% this year. Again, because of the contributions of the new resources that we're seeing on the grid.
Pablo Vegas, ERCOT's CEO, told the board that we've added 10 gigawatts of solar and storage and we're better off. He's confident heading into the summer and says the grid is stronger than ever because of these new resources. We have a more reliable grid because of it. This should not be difficult for anybody to understand. It should be obvious to anybody. Solar is beautifully correlated with air conditioning load, and batteries are fantastic resources. No one can credibly deny the benefits that solar and storage are providing around the world, and particularly here in Texas. The facts, as presented by ERCOT's grid operator, are plain for anybody to see. The odds of outages are 95% less this summer than last, and the only resources added at scale were solar and storage with some wind. In August of 2024, the risk of an energy emergency in the evening hours was 16%. August 2025, it is less than 1%. That is mostly because we've been adding a whole lot of battery storage. And it's also with much higher demand. To see this 95% decrease in risk while we are adding all kinds of demand. Everybody around the country is talking about load growth. Texas is experiencing it. We are on pace to approach 500 terawatt hours of consumption this year. That's up from less than 400 terawatt hours only 4 years ago, a 25% increase in only 4 years, a growth rate like we haven't seen since the 1960s. We've added about 3 gigawatts of gas over that time, but we've added over 40 gigawatts of wind, solar, and storage, the vast majority of that being solar and storage. Our peak demand was about 75 gigawatts 4 years ago, and we had about 125 gigawatts to serve it. Now our peak demand is expected to be 87 gigawatts, and we have 170 gigawatts to serve it. As ERCOT's CEO said, we're in a better position because of these new resources. So how did we get here? Well, it's complicated. The restructuring of 1999, which introduced competition and took away a guaranteed rate of return for generators, shifted the risk to investors instead of ratepayers and invited private investment. That's one major factor. There are many others. But another undeniable reason for this success that has increased the reliability of the Texas grid, allowed us to achieve the significant demand growth while reducing reliability risks, are the 60,000 hardworking Texans, and that number is growing by the day, employed in wind, solar, and storage. Approximately 6,000 of them are veterans like Shawn Salis. Let's hear from Shawn.
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Shawn Salis. I represent myself, and I'm a constituent of Senator Kohlhorst. and I'm here to oppose Senate Bill 819. I'm a 6-year veteran of the United States Navy Special Operations Community from Richmond, Texas, not the city. Throughout my service, like my fellow veteran here, I operated in some of the most challenging environments where energy reliability and security were critical to mission success. The experience has given me a deep appreciation for the importance of a stable, diverse, and resilient energy grid, something that, in my opinion, SB 819 threatens to undermine. Texas has been a long leader in energy innovation, embracing wind and solar alongside traditional sources to strengthen our grid and create jobs. I've been privileged to work in this industry since getting out of the military, to raise my family. And to that end, I brought my daughter here to show her what it means to be a voice, to fight for something that's important and something that you care about. This bill places unnecessary barriers on renewable energy development, discouraging investment and slowing progress at a time where energy independence is more critical than ever. The additional permitting requirements and fees will stifle economic growth, particularly in rural communities where renewable projects have provided jobs and financial security for landowners and for people like me. During my time in the Navy, I saw firsthand how dependence on limited energy sources could create vulnerabilities. A strong, self-sufficient Texas should embrace energy diversification, not legislate against it. I urge you to oppose SB 819 and stand for an energy future that is strong, independent, and built on innovation. Let Texas lead, as we always have.
That was his testimony to the Texas legislature opposing a bill that would have hurt his industry. He's Navy Special Ops working in the renewable industry right here in Texas. The Senate, it has been widely reported, has been listening to Alex Epstein, a man who thinks fossil fuels are the only energy source, the only useful energy source. Newsflash, they aren't. Fossil fuels are amazing. They're incredibly energy dense. They have contributed to economic growth in society in massive ways, and they're going to be used for a long time. In Texas, our fossil fuel companies use renewable energy to lower emissions, yes, which helps them market their product, including LNG overseas, but more importantly, renewables help them lower their costs. Oil companies pushed hard for an expanded transmission build-out approved by the PUC in April so they could hook their Permian Basin operations into the grid. They expect to go from 3 or 4 gigawatts grid connected to over 10 gigawatts within a decade. It'll mostly be renewables, which is why they were very involved during the recent legislative session to stop some of the anti-renewable bills. Epstein claims to support fossil fuels, but if you support fossil fuels, you should want to lower the cost of producing a barrel of oil. Abruptly ending the tax credits would do the opposite. A few weeks ago, Epstein said that solar installers like Shawn Salis and 6,000 other veterans and 54,000 other Texans, for that matter, are like drug dealers. I'm reading from a New York Times article where it says, in a recent interview on Mr. Epstein's podcast, Representative Chip Roy, Republican of Texas, said wind and solar jobs made the United States weaker and likened subsidies that create such employment to the drug trade. Mr. Epstein agreed, calling them fentanyl jobs. End quote. He should apologize. Epstein and Congressman Roy, both. Can you imagine if renewable energy advocates said oil and gas workers or coal miners were like drug pushers? People would have erupted in outrage, and rightly so, because it's wrong to make this personal. You don't like solar power for some reason, that's your right, but don't disparage the hardworking men and women who are paying their taxes, trying to put food on their table for their families, and meeting the energy needs of this country. Epstein and Roy should apologize for this. It's embarrassing and shameful. If they're decent human beings, they should just admit they're wrong and say they're sorry. They claim that solar and storage make the grid weaker, but that is objectively false. ERCOT leaders have stated clearly that solar and storage have made the grid stronger and reduced our chance of energy emergency from 16% to 0.5% in 1 year, a 95% improvement, largely because of the contribution of these hardworking men and women right here in Texas and around the country. They're wrong to personally insult workers, and they're wrong on the facts. But this kind of thinking is like a virus, and it's spreading. Secretary Wright, the Secretary of Energy, who I hoped would be someone who might put pragmatism above ideology, unfortunately, has chosen a different path.
That's when it matters. If you're not there at peak demand, you're just a parasite on the grid.
So the Secretary of Energy said solar power is a parasite because solar doesn't produce on peak. On a daily basis in Texas, 35 to 40% of our power is coming from solar on peak at the hottest point in the day. Last I checked, parasites don't give energy to their host. It was a crazy and utterly nonsensical thing to say. And again, deeply offensive to the over 1 million Americans who work hard every day to build and maintain wind turbines, solar panels, and battery energy storage systems. They're not parasites, and the energy source that they put onto the grid are not parasites. The men and women of this industry pay the secretary's salary, and they deserve better from him. But here's what I'm most interested in. Where do these people, Epstein, Secretary Wright, where do they think they're going to get the power for AI? The president is all in on AI and claims we're going to lead the world. But 81% of what we installed as a country last year was wind, solar, and storage. 81%. Take away the tax credits like Epstein, Roy, Wright, etc. want to do, and you'll raise the cost of power, slowing down America's economy, hurting consumers, and hobbling our ability to compete with China. Where would the power come from? President Trump created the National Energy Dominance Council. It's chaired by Secretary Burgum. I did a podcast and YouTube video. You can find it, Doug Lewin Energy, on YouTube. That included a clip from Burgum where he said on the All In podcast, he said LNG power plants are the way to get power quickly. There are no LNG power plants. It's not even a thing. But the director of the Energy Dominance Council, Jared Egan, did an interview with Politico. Here's what he said.
We're demanding more energy now than ever before. And so the faster way to get to it is the priority projects of natural gas. That's the highest growing level right now. And we know that things like ultimately nuclear will be a perfect source.
The director of the National Energy Dominance Council says the fastest way to get more power is natural gas. Interesting, because the entire industry is talking about how there's a supply chain shortage. The biggest gas turbine manufacturer, GE Vernova, is selling turbines for delivery in 2029 and 2030. If you want a new gas turbine, you will get it long after Donald Trump has left office. But Egan says it's the fastest way. China last year installed 400 gigawatts of power. We installed 60. GE Vernova, again, the largest manufacturer, is currently ramping up production to make 20 gigawatts of gas turbines by 2027 for the entire world. 20 gigawatts. Egan says nuclear is perfect power. Fine, so long as perfect means waiting until the 2030s. Look, you don't have to like the tax credits, but you have to have a plan for alternative sources of power. Seriously, where is it going to come from? This isn't a rhetorical question, and they can't answer it. And that means they are willing to take the risk that they will slow down the U.S. economy, increase customers' bills, because that's what happens. It's supply and demand. This isn't that complicated. Demand, like Egan said, is going up. We see that in the data in Texas. If you constrain supply and alternatives aren't available, more demand, less supply, what do you think will happen? You don't have to be an economist. Prices are going up. Guys like Epstein aren't worried about that, but elected officials should worry about that. They're going to own it. Epstein won't have to face the voters, but the electeds will. Of course, there's a positive side to this. If they do this well and ramp the benefits down, the tax credits down, they could get bipartisan support and really eliminate the tax credits longer term instead of having them put back in when Democrats take control again. But more importantly, with predictability and certainty and some time to adjust, renewable developers can find cost reductions and consumers and the American economy could be spared. Here's hoping cooler heads prevail and not people who make personal mean attacks on American workers. There's no reason for that. And people that engage in it should not be invited in by senators or anybody else. They should be shunned. If Congress puts consumers at the center of their policymaking, this will come out well. If they choose ideology over their constituents, this will end very badly for our country. American consumers will lose, American industry will lose, and they will know exactly who to blame. Thanks for tuning in. Please go to douglewin.com to subscribe. More on all of this as it develops.